Well, like, do you know what's really annoying? Is the fact that I said about maybe a month ago that I was taking a bit of a back seat, taking a bit of a break to sort of focus on my mental health, you know what I mean, etc., which I still stand by. However, when certain things come to my attention, I'm left to quote Willie Reddy from Burgundy, absolutely flabbergasted. I honestly fuck up. I mean, I'm so out of the loop. I didn't even realize that there was like a protest going on in Glasgow. I don't even know what day this occurred. Whether it was yesterday, albeit obviously this is now Sunday. Is it? I mean, I don't know if this was Friday. I don't know if this was Saturday. I don't know. Right. But I mean, obviously, I can recall last year there was a similar protest that I attended, sort of, with my ex partner at the time. And I we ended up just spending most of our time getting fucking drunk in weather spins as opposed to actually participating in the cringe that is left versus right. That said, point being, I am so out of the fucking loop, but I started reading a bit of this article here, and I could just feel my chromosomes leave my fucking body, man. Oh, come on. So, here we have the daily record, and like the reason I'm making this video on a side note, albeit disregard like the obvious reasons, but the other reason I'm making this video is because you know a lot of people, like, whether or not they're sort of air quote unquote conservative or fucking libtard, whatever it may be, this BS is taken at face value, you know, and quite frankly, it's it's abhorrent. You know what I mean? It's gaslighting 101. But it's never met with any pushback. And there was a period of time a few years ago where there was a semblance of pushback being directed their way, and it fell at the wayside over time. And obviously, as time has progressed, what's ended up occurring is you're in the risk of going to fucking jail and whatnot if you say the wrong thing. But regardless of that fact, I don't care anymore. Like, I really don't. Race hate has no place in Scotland and should not be tolerated. This is Daily Record exclusive, right? It then immediately goes on to gaslight. It's like blaming people who look or sound different to us is not the answer. Who is blaming people specifically for looking and or sounding different to us for their woes, their qualms, their issues and whatnot? I can't stand it anyway. Or I'm not gonna end up on a rant before I even get into the actual article in and of itself. I'm just saying, like, this crap. How many times have you heard over the years? It's like people like, we need to stop scapegoating migrants. Like, fuck off. Like, nobody's scapegoating air quote unquote migrants, right? We've got our own issues. Charity begins at home, though. This is the sort of thing that these people have seemed to just ignore 24/7. Regardless, so hate has no place in Scotland and should not be tolerated. Okay. That's fine though. If you're talking about white people, that's fine. You can poo-poo all over them. So it says, it's a depressing reality that record number of people across Scotland are falling victim to hate crimes. Is I. So obviously the way that the Daily Record are trying to sort of present the beginning of this cringy little article here is that, there's more and more and more and more people that are, buying into fictitious nonsense and fictitious conspiracy theories, etc. But the reality of the matter is the parameters have been set. Hate crime bill, courtesy of this dickhead here. Parameters have been set. Hate crime bill in place. Definitions have been completely redefined as time has gone on. Racism all of a sudden has become a much more than simply, thinking a different race opposed, different to your own, subordinate, etc. Now all of a sudden it's all about environmental racism, etc. All of a sudden it's about unconscious bias. All of a sudden it's about structures. But anyway, cases of racial and religious abuse have risen sharply in the past 3 years. But the vast majority of reported crimes now involve what police term a racial aggravator. Right, okay. And what? Am I justifying? Am I? No, I'm not. But the point is, though, this is the same thing when it comes to racist incidents in school. And I'm going to actually show this just so people don't think I'm talking at a piss. A racist incident is any incident which is perceived by the victim or any other person, right? Okay, so when they talk about in obviously in the context of schools, for example, my microphone is absolutely butchered, but they say that racist incidents are on the rise in Scotland. But again, face value might sound pretty grim, might sound pretty grotesque, might even sound somewhat worrying, depending on what way you fucking fall politically speaking. But the reality matter is all about perception. The hate crime bill in and of itself back in the day. You don't even need to necessarily say something that could be considered racist or hateful in any capacity, right? But a bystander might perceive what you said and or what you did allegedly or didn't do. And boom, there you go. And then it asks the statistics, right? So like I've always struggled with that crap. But here we are again. Here we are again. 2025. Rainbow Unicorn fuck. And I will post a link to that PDF in the description, but it's very easily accessible. Anyway, it's little surprise given the hatred that is now routinely spouted on social media by cretins desperate for attention. But the real villains are the likes of Donald Trump and Nigel Farage. Like, I actually do struggle, with this BS, like in terms of like there's so many people who think that like Donald Trump or Nigel Farage, the Reform Party, etc., are like gonna save the fucking day, whatnot, and I find it cringe, cringe. Right, I'm not even going to elaborate any further than that. I'm just saying, I guess, just retarded. Anyway, right wing populists find huge audiences online where they can easily point the finger at refugees and Muslims and blame them for all the UK's ills. Let's not forget it was the Conservatives, the party which reform owes its very existence to, who were in power throughout the 2010s. And what? And what? This goes back full circle to the sort of argumentation that you will hear time and time again about allegedly scapegoating refugees and whatnot. Charity begins at home, right? Housing council waiting lists. Right, in fact, let me sort of backtrack ever so slightly, right? So, how many councils in Scotland are declaring housing emergency? Shirley Ann Somerville just fucking last year on BBC Radio Scotland said herself that part of the reason for why Glasgow declared a housing emergency was because of the refugee influx, right? That's one thing, okay? Charity begins at home, right? So we've got massive fucking influxes of people coming into the country. We have got an ever expanding amount of waiting lists, short lists, etc., for dentistry, schools, doctor appointments, housing, and whatnot. You know what I mean? Back in the day, all of the facilities that were put in place for our own people have all of a sudden become completely over overwhelmed. Why is that? Oh, it's well, you can't say anything about brown people. Oh, clearly has something to do with it. Clearly, it's not to suggest that it's completely all their fault, but to disregard their role in it is this is what I'm talking about, man. They insinuate you're far right, racist, etc., and you're scapegoating migrants, but they disregard completely in its entirety any involvement for them. You know what I mean? And the reason that these people do that, the reason that the SNP, the reason that the Daily Record, the reason that the Labour Party, etc., or any party for that matter, the reason that they completely refuse to even concede that these people play even a minute role in any influx or any overwhelming of any fucking service going, right? The reason that these people do that is pretty self-explanatory, because if they were to concede that these things, or these people, sorry, these groups of people, irrespective, by the way, of like what color they are, if they were to concede that these people played any role whatsoever in, aiding and abetting the the influx of services, then they would be giving ground to the opposition, right? So that in and of itself should tell you all you need to fucking know. These people are very insincere, and they're very insincere, because if they were being sincere, then they would admit that these people play a bit of a role. But they can't do that. They refuse to do that, And anybody that brings up, oh, you're full wrong, you're racist, Anyway, right. So it then goes on about. It was Tory economics that shattered industries in the 1980s and 1990s and condemned too many towns and villages to economic depressions that they have struggled against ever since. It was Margaret Thatcher and her cheerleaders who sold off public utilities on the cheap, condemning consumers to line the pockets of fat cats for simply switching on the kettle. I mean, can feel my chromosomes sweating out of my pores. I'm reading crop, and I ain't a Tory, by the way. I'm just saying, what the fuck what relevancy does this shit have? And I know this is some sort of puff piece, opinion piece from a Daily Record, but this is the sort of status quo that so many politicians, journalists, etc., all share. Like the opinion, the status quo, the narrative, the framing of everything that goes on within society. This is it. This is it. The UK faces difficult economic choices like most major Western nations. Why are most major Western nations facing fucking issues, economically speaking? Oh, well, my climate change, but and has struggled with inflation. Yes, of course, but it's justified because Papa Putin, Slavic based chant, Papa Putin. It's no wonder some people are left angry as a result, but blaming people who look or sound different to us is not the answer and can never be condoned. Who the fuck is blaming brown and black people? Who is blaming people who don't sound like us, right? I am fed up of this. This is gaslighting. This is gaslighting, because this isn't just the Daily Record. This is all of these people. They always do that. We are being completely gaslit. The public in general is being gaslit, right? Nobody is blaming brown, black, migrants, refugees, whatever the fucking case may be. Nobody is blaming these people for their ills, their problems, their woes, their financial constraints, etc. Nobody is doing that. However, the people that are advocating for them to be here in the first place are the ones that will insinuate that that's exactly what you're fucking doing. And that's the problem. It's gaslighting 101. Quite frankly, we are in a fucking abusive relationship with our own public servants who masquerade as our politicians. Food for thought, if nothing else. You know what I mean? And on that note, adios.